When you stop trying to fix yourself is the day that you free yourself. Life forces us to learn. So when you enjoy the process of learning and working on yourself, you realize it's just part of the game. When you think that when I get it all clear, then everything will happen, it will never happen like that. And that's the delusion that most people have. This is a behind the scenes special series from a live training that I did with our Mojo Insiders group on enhancing self-discipline and staying empowered. These are 8 powerful tips to create unconscious change. Welcome everybody, welcome to, I think this might be the first or the second training we have done for the Mojo Insiders group. And I thought tonight it would be a great night to talk about self-discipline and staying empowered. And so I know that for most people have goals, most people want to achieve things, most people want to create better habits, but I also know that it is extremely hard to change those habits. And I think that most people think self-discipline is the key, which it does have a fair bit to do with it. What I wanted to do tonight was to talk about some of the research that is available around self-discipline, around staying empowered, and what it really takes, and what are some of the things that can really screw it up. There is a lot of studies out there and a lot of information out there that says that people just naturally lack willpower, and that there are some people who have a lot of willpower and there are those who don't. Now, as someone who grew up having things like ADHD or ADD, my teachers used to tell me all the time that I had ADD. My parents used to say it as well. I've never been diagnosed, but I sure as shit know after studying a lot about it that I probably, if I went to go get diagnosed, I probably would have it. I would probably bet a lot of money on it because I have a lot of the patterns of behavior around ADHD. So that sort of way of thinking and behaving, or whether you want to be called diagnosed ADHD, normally you'll find people like that normally lack self-discipline and lack self-empowerment or staying empowered. And they'll tend to be quite erratic and bounce around between things. And so I've struggled with this for a long, long time. Hence why I've done so much personal development and personal growth work, because I really wanted to find out how I could better myself. And what I know about this community and the people who are listening in, what I know is that if you're part of our community, you're probably someone who wants to do a lot better in life, as was I at 21 years of age, where I thought life can't really get any worse, so I might as well have a crack and start doing some personal development stuff, much to the dismay of a lot of my friends and family who thought that all this stuff was bullshit. But in saying that, now I would probably be the top performing one of my friends in that friendship circle, that old friendship circle. I probably make the most money. Actually, I probably definitely make the most money. I think my lifestyle is pretty good. I enjoy what I do. And I think the same would be, or could be said with my family as well. Definitely make the most money out of all the people in my family. And not that it's just about money, but it's also about lifestyle and doing what you love. So what I know is that there is a lot that you can do around personal development and personal growth that can really help you to change the way you think about things and change the way you behave. And so tonight, I just wanted to share some of the key bits of research around self-discipline and staying empowered. Some of the things that have helped me, some of the things that I'm still working on. Personal development and personal growth is a never-ending thing that you just commit to for the rest of your life, just like going to the gym. It's one thing to do a 12-week gym program and lose weight, but if you're not on that program for the rest of the 40-something weeks of the year, or if it's a 12-week program, it's 40 weeks of the year. So if you're not looking after yourself for 40 weeks of the year and not going to the gym, the chances that you are going to maintain those results are going to be slim to none. And so that's why those 12-week challenges in most cases work for a short period of time, but then stop working. And a lot of the research shows that for the people out there who enter those 12-week challenges, most people will convince themselves that if they just do the 12-week challenge, that they will change their habits, they will change their behaviors, and afterwards, they will go back to operating in some normality and they won't be as hardcore. But the problem is that they are setting up a big polarity for themselves, and so it tends not to work. If we think about things in a longer scale and a longer format, it tends to work a lot better. And that's where Thrive Time and getting really, really clear, especially the last 2 years of Thrive Time, now that you create your own success map for life, which works on 3 key pillars. The first pillar is fulfillment. The second pillar is direction. And the third pillar is performance psychology. Those 3 pillars and 11 steps put together help you to have direction, help you to feel fulfilled, and also to achieve the life and the goals that you want. But what you'll find is that with every level of growth, there is just a new level of problems. And you'll hear me talk about something called noospheres. In a noosphere is essentially a sphere of mind. Now, it was hypothesized by D. Killard D. Chedin, I think his name was, or something like that. And what he stated was that we move through these spheres of evolution, these spheres of growth. And just like the geosphere or the biosphere, which is the life sphere, so when you think about biology, the biosphere has an impact on the geosphere. So the geosphere is inanimate rock, and the biosphere evolves over the top of the geosphere. That biosphere then changes and alters the rock, which then now changes the way that the landscape is of Earth. Then, what he hypothesized or he spoke about was that there are these noospheres, and the noospheres is a sphere of intelligence. That sphere of intelligence then impacts and controls the biosphere, which the biosphere then impacts the geosphere. So humans have this ability to control biology, but also have the ability to control the geosphere. So if you have a look out at nature, we can control most animals. We have the ability to control what we do, and we can also change the earth should we choose to, which we have already anyway. But what he said is that there are these noospheres, which are spheres of intelligence. So as you grow and evolve as an individual, you go through these new spheres of intelligence. And that made me realize that throughout our life, we essentially are just in school and we learn some lessons and then we get given a test. Should we pass the test, we go to the next noosphere. And this is where we have identity crisis. So normally for those who have done Thrive Time, I know sometimes you'll reach out to me and you'll say, everything's falling apart. It feels like nothing's working. I've redone my values. I've redone my mission. Life's turned to shit and I don't know what to do. What's happened there is that normally you're starting to break away and dissolve old parts of yourself because you're busting through a new level of evolution. And if we think about it like a noosphere or an information sphere, we're essentially at grade 1 and we're pushing out into grade 2. But we've had to have a test that we're going through now, which feels like everything's falling apart and life's turned to shit, in order for us to learn what we need to learn so we can push out to that next noosphere. Now, in that next noosphere, the same thing happens again, where we cruise along for a while, we learn a whole bunch of lessons, we sort of cruise for a little bit, and then as we keep pushing towards growth and growing to that next stage of evolution, what will happen is we get tested again. If we get the test and we pass the test based on our learnings, we then go through an identity crisis and we go to level 3. Now, I'm just using levels as an example because I think when you're a growth-driven individual, you might go through these noosphere spheres every 6 to 12 months. So if you're somebody who is pushing hard for personal growth, about every 6 to 12 months, you'll feel like shit just starts falling apart again. But what you're doing is you're shedding layers, just like a snake sheds its skin in order to grow into the next evolution of itself. We also have to shed parts of ourselves. It might be shedding friendships. It might be shedding thought processes. It also might be shedding emotional ways that we deal with things. It might be shedding some of our behaviors and some of our habits. But that shedding is quite uncomfortable. Just like if you see a snake that can't shed its skin properly and it gets jammed up in there, it's really painful and it's really uncomfortable for the snake because it can't break through and it can't get rid of the skin. Once it peels the skin off, then it's good to grow again. Crabs do the same thing. Crustaceans, they will drop their shells, hence how you get soft shell crab. But they drop their shells in order to create a new shell, that new hard outer layer as the animal grows. We go through the same process in our own psyche, in our own psychology. So it's important to realize that we have these stages of evolution, if you believe in the theory that's presented about noospheres, which I think is pretty accurate. Whether it's scientifically proven or not, I don't really know whether it will be proven or available to be proven. It's just a theory, part of a philosophy, but it makes sense. When we're thinking about self-discipline and staying empowered, we have to remember that for every level of self-discipline and feeling self-powered, we will go through a stage where we feel really strong, really confident, really powerful because we've learned a whole bunch of lessons and we're feeling confident with those lessons. As we evolve and we grow and we go through that new noosphere where we start to shed parts of ourselves, we start to break through. And part of the reason why we have an identity crisis is because part of what we identify ourselves with is getting fucked up. Okay, that's really what it is. And so that's why you have an identity crisis. Because if you call yourself disciplined and now you're going through this stage of feeling undisciplined, you're breaking through to that new level and you're feeling undisciplined, but at the same time, you're learning how to own the trait of being undisciplined as well as being disciplined at that level. So part of that screws with your own head because you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? I feel lost. I don't know who I am because I identify this way, but I'm not just that anymore. So I don't know what I am. And what you'll notice is that some of your goals shed. You might find that some of your values shift and change. That's all part of the process of growth and evolution. Hence why the stuff that you learn at Thrive Time is probably one of the greatest things you'll ever learn in the area of your own mindset and your psyche. Because if you just utilize those tools, you can go back to them through those stages, do some processes, and help the process move through that identity crisis into that new noosphere. If not, you'll get stuck there. Now, what I noticed, this is how I identified with it, because when it first happened to me, well, the first time I was really aware of it, I was all confused. I was like, I know that I've got these big goals, I've got a big mission, I'm clear with my values and I'm living my values. But I wake up, I'm uninspired, I'm not driven towards anything, I feel like shit, I'm overeating food, I'm not training, I'm not doing the things that used to make me feel good about myself. And now I feel like shit because everything that I used to use as a self sabotage pattern to drive me back towards my values wasn't working. So, what we call self sabotage is just a strategy to try to get us back in alignment with our values. There is no such thing as self sabotage. No living organism self sabotages. We just have a strategy to try to get us back into our values. So, a great example of this is I noticed that for Jess and myself, we work quite a lot. We work a shitload. But Jess has her office, I have my office. Now, my second highest value is connection. So if I'm not connecting with people, I feel like I'm a bit lost. And what I notice is that sometimes I'll sit in my office for 2 to 3 days and I'm just working flat out. Throughout the day, I'll pop into Jess's office, say hi, we might quickly eat dinner together, and then we'll get back to work. If this happens for an extended period of time, I might try to connect with Jess. Now, Jess has a lower value of social connection or our relationship. What I notice is that if I don't get attention from her, I will start an argument, which I might call self-sabotage. But it's not really self-sabotage, it's trying to drive me back in alignment with my values because I'm trying to get my values met through connection. Now, I know that an argument isn't the best way of getting connection, but I also know it's better than not getting connection. So it's actually, even though I call it self-sabotage, it's driving me back towards my values. So when I was thinking about these stages of evolution and the noospheres, what I realized is that even when I would try these self-sabotage patterns, I would still feel like shit and I still felt lost. And that's because my identity of who I believed I was being shattered so that I could grow into the next evolution of myself. So my suggestion is for anyone out there who's going through an identity crisis where you feel lost and nothing seems to work and you've got your values clear and your mission, just keep chipping away a little bit with some processes. Make sure you're really clear with your mission again. Double check that you are living your values and prioritizing them, and then just chill the fuck out for a couple of weeks. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't try to create too many goals. Just chill. Your brain needs to integrate a whole bunch of new ideas, new concepts, new thoughts, and it's integrating everything. And it's going to take a couple of weeks for you to pop through. The longest one I've had takes about 6 weeks, and that was really stressful, especially for someone that was driven. And then I lost all my drive. I felt like I couldn't be bothered doing anything. I was waking up late. I was going to bed early. I was just sleeping a lot, watching some shitty TV, and just doing the bare minimum in the business. But that 6 weeks was enough to just push me through to that next level, and I became a different person. And you'll probably see me now, like if you go back and you watch the videos from 2 years ago, I would talk really, really fast. I still do, but I used to talk really, really fast. I was quite erratic. I'm just different now. I'm a lot different, a lot calmer. I don't really stress too much. I just get shit done these days, which has helped me evolve into a better leader and a better manager in the business. And business has been doing a lot better because of it. But going through that 6-week period of losing all my drive was really, really tough. So now the question is, what does this have to do with enhancing self-discipline and staying empowered? Because when we're thinking about self-discipline, you'll have times of feeling disciplined and times of feeling undisciplined. You'll have times of feeling empowered and times of feeling disempowered, depending on where you're at in your own evolution, okay, and where you're at in those noospheres. But what we want to think about is if we want to get better results in our life, we need to understand what self-discipline is and what staying empowered means. In the American Psychological Association, they did an annual survey, and what they found was that participants regularly cited willpower as the number one reason why they don't follow through on self-change. So essentially, people are setting goals. They know that they want to grow, they want to evolve, they want to do something better in their life, whether it's a diet and lose some weight, whether it's to improve their health outcomes, whether it might be to get a relationship or improve their relationship, maybe not have arguments, not be a dick in their own business, manage people more effectively. Whatever it is, that all these participants regularly cited willpower as the number one reason why they don't follow through on changing themselves. Okay, so I found that quite interesting. So this comes from the American Psychological Association on their annual stress survey. So tonight, what I wanted to do was I really wanted to go through and talk about what willpower is, how we can understand it, and how we can assess it, and some of the really simple tools that you can implement immediately. Like you'll be able to implement stuff immediately after I do this talk tonight. So if you haven't already got a notepad, I highly recommend that you grab a notepad. So 8 powerful tools to create and stay disciplined. The first thing that you'll find is that when you want to create greater willpower, you have to have a reason to have willpower. Now, I know that it sounds really, 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 really fucking obvious. But what happens is that when most people go to change a habit or they go to set a goal, what most people do or don't do is that they're not clear on the reasons why. Like, let's say it's lose weight. Someone goes, I want to lose weight because I feel like shit. I look in the mirror, I don't like myself. But that's not really a good reason. It's normally wrapped up around an external motivator. That external motivator might be that people judge me, people criticize me. It might be that you have negative self-talk towards yourself, which could be the implanted values of others. So you're not really doing it for you. You're doing it externally. You're doing it for something outside of yourself. What you've got to do is the first thing is to figure out why it is important for you. Okay. And you've got to have clear, very, very clear understanding as to why it is important. So willpower researcher Rod Baumeister, who's a PhD of psychology in Florida State University, stated that you need to have clear motivation in order to create consistent change. Okay. And I know, like I said, it sounds obvious, but what I know is that 99% of people who come to Thrive Time, now this is just me making up a percentage, but it's almost fucking everybody, isn't mission driven. They're goal driven. And it was Dr. John Demartini who we were just chatting on, just a call that we were having. He said to me, the day that I became mission driven versus goal driven, everything in my life changed. And that etched and burnt in my brain. I read our company mission every day. So every day on our team meetings now as a business, we talk about the company's mission. Why? Because it reminds staff of why we exist, why we're here, and why we do what we do. You know, our mission is to create a bunch of businesses that help people perform better. Now that's in business, in mindset, in health, in relationships, in business. Like all these things that I'm creating at the moment, there's stuff that I'm starting to put together for charitable organizations to be able to use some of the mental health tools that I have to be able to help with the mental health crisis supposedly that we've got going on, right through to health clinics that I'm starting to work with at the moment to be able to have a greater impact on people's health. But I remind staff every day, this is why we do what we do. Because what it does is it creates greater willpower and a greater reasoning for the team to want to do their work and want to push hard and to want to achieve. So our purpose as a business is to help people perform better. Again, we talk about it every day. So if you want to become mission driven, you need to look at your mission every day. So my mission in life is to create businesses that help people to perform better, which is why our business one is the same, because that's what I love to do. That's all I think about is helping people perform better. Something that you may not know about me is that when you talk to me, I don't really care about your problems. All I see is that you have the potential of being so much greater than what you give yourself credit for. I also try to listen to figure out what your values are. I listen to the imbalances that you have going on that are probably creating some of those barriers and are holding you back. And then my goal is just to help you get there. I don't really judge people, don't really give a fuck. Like I've worked with people who've done some crazy shit and all I see is a person who has the ability to do way better than what they even think of themselves. That's what I see. That's also the reason why Jess will not allow me to hire people anymore, because when I used to hire people, I would give people opportunities because I could see their potential. That's a really fucking bad strategy if you're wanting to build a business, because I just give people opportunities that probably shouldn't have them. But that's how I used to hire, because I see that. So when it comes back to you understanding your mission, make sure you are super clear with your mission and your purpose. Because without those two things, it is very, very hard to create the discipline to change consistently and the discipline to evolve, the discipline to break old habits, the discipline to create new habits. And as you grow and as you evolve as a person, you're creating new habits and you're destroying old habits, or you're reinforcing old habits. So every second of every day, we're creating new habits or we're reinforcing old habits. So if we want to change a habit, we've got to create a new habit and not do the old habit, because what it's doing is it's firing and wiring circuits in our brain. Every time our brain thinks, I should just do that. And you say, no, I have a greater mission, I have a greater purpose to not do that thing anymore. Your brain then now starts to become weaker in the old pattern. And when you think about what I would rather be doing instead, and you've got a better strategy and you want to do something different, your brain then will fire and wire that new strategy. And over time, that becomes a new habit. But that new habit will eventually become an old habit, and you call that a hindrance. So if you think throughout your life, you have probably been creating new habits a lot. But those new habits are destroying old habits, but those old habits were once new habits. Okay, so we're always changing. Now, if you don't change and you're very predictable, then you're going to keep getting the same results. Something that I mention quite a lot to Jess when we talk about it, I say that if someone can say, Michael is this way in 10 years, then I haven't fucking changed. So if people can describe me in 10 years, I haven't changed. I still hear people say, Michael's erratic. He gets angry and frustrated quite a lot. That used to be me. That's not me anymore. I'm pretty calm. I can use those tools. I can get angry when I need to be angry, and I can get frustrated when I need to be frustrated. But these days I'm pretty calm. I'm pretty chilled out. I just get shit done. I'm pretty patient, although I'm patiently impatient. And that's because I don't want the ability for people to describe me how I was, because if I'm that same person, I haven't changed. So if people can describe you and the person you were 20 years ago is the person you are today, it's because you're not changing. And we want to change, okay? Because things that don't grow in nature die, okay? We want to keep growing. It's really important as well because the aging process forces us to change. I noticed that with my exercise routine, I've had to change quite a lot over the last 5 to 10 years because my body didn't respond the same way as it did when I was 21. But I'm fitter, stronger, and probably more healthier than what I was when I was 21. And that's just because I keep altering and changing. Same thing for you as well. If you want to keep changing, you have to keep adapting. So we've got to have that motivation. We've got to have a bigger reason. If the reason is, I want to give up smoking because it just makes me feel like shit, not a big enough reason. The reason is, I want to have longevity so that I can see my kids grow up. I want to see my grandkids. I want to be able to make an impact. Therefore, I want to give up smoking because it just doesn't suit me anymore. It doesn't serve its purpose anymore. Every habit that we have serves a purpose. There is no such thing as a self-destructive behavior. It may seem like it's self-destructive, but you've got conflicting goals. You've got conflicting ideas. You're saying, I want to change because I know that there's something that I can be doing so much better. But at the moment, I've got this old habit that keeps popping up that's been reinforced that I used to have benefits to. Those benefits aren't working anymore, but I still perceive that that habit has more benefit than change. Because if you perceive that your old habits, they've still got greater benefits than the new habits that you're trying to create, they won't change. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit about how to break that. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to get clearly aligned with your mission, your purpose, and your top 3 values. So if you want to be really disciplined, get a big mission and get it really, really clear. And don't bullshit yourself. Okay, in the new updated Thrive Time, which is now about 2 years old, if you haven't done Thrive Time in the last 2 years, you've probably got the old Thrive Time. But in there, what I say is start with the visions first. Your brain has these visions that keep popping up. Okay, they'll keep popping up. You want to record and document those visions if they're consistent. Because what that's telling you is that something is important. If you document them, it makes the mission easier. So for me, I think about traveling all around the world in luxury, speaking with the biggest speakers on the planet and the top experts in their field. I love learning and hanging out with those types of people. I love grabbing that information and integrating it and then figuring out how it works with what I know and then sharing it to the masses. That's what I love to do. So I think about that all the time. I have visions that pop up. In the morning when I wake up, they're there. I think about other shit as well, but they're the visions that pop up. So I want to document them and record them. I think about myself standing on stage in front of 10,000 people. I think about the charitable organization that I would love to set up by the end of this year to help emergency services with things like PTSD and stuff like that, that can use some of the tools and some of the knowledge that I have and train other people to run that. They're the things that I think about. I think about helping business owners have a bigger impact and their ability to create an amazing business. I think about that all the time. So I want to document those visions. Then from there, I think, what are their commonalities? And what I do is I grab that and I put that into a mission. And the mission should be short, sharp, and shiny. Back in the old days, I used to have this big, long, 3-page mission that had everything on there. It's too much. It just needs to be really, really simple. The more simple the mission is, the more it'll etch in your brain and the more you'll be able to remind yourself of it. So once you're clear with your mission, then you go and look at your values. You need to get really clear with your top 3 values. I've found the best values test that I've ever come across is the one that I currently use in Thrive Time. And that is where you document your week and you write down the key common things that you do every week, week after week. And then what you do is you assess the values from those things that you do. Because most people convince themselves and they think that their values are their values, but they're not really their values. Because if you're broke, you'll be thinking about money all the time because you're in flight, fight, and freeze mode. You're essentially in survival mode. So you don't want to be thinking about what you're currently thinking about when you're doing your values. What you want to do is look at what your life demonstrates. Your life demonstrates your values. If you work 30, or let's say you work 45 hours a week, then probably work, career, business, or wealth creation or money is important to you. Now, most people say, yeah, but it's just a means to an end. It's just, I'm working because I want to support my family. But if you're spending 2 hours a week with family and 45 hours a week working, work is actually a higher priority and a higher value than family is. If not, you'd spend more time with family. Now, this doesn't mean that you want to kill your family. It just means that you prioritize your career over family. Now, in a crisis, that will change. So if you run out of money, money will become a priority for a short period of time. But when you get enough money to just pay your bills, you'll go back to living your values. And then all that will happen is you'll be in crisis mode again financially. And this is why most people get stuck financially, because they have their values incorrect. So your life demonstrates your values. Okay, so you want to get really, really clear with your mission, your top 3 values, and your purpose. This is the starting framework of really developing empowering habits and also making sure that you're creating empowering change and staying very disciplined. The more focused you are on your mission and your goals, the more you'll see challenge as enjoyable. So when you're living outside of your values, you're unclear on your mission and you just set a goal, you'll see challenges being a nightmare, a pain in the ass, and you'll become frustrated, you'll become resentful, you'll get stressed out, and eventually you'll give up. So it's really, really important to make sure that those things are aligned first. If you go back to your Thrive Time folder and get really, really clear, especially the most updated Thrive Time, the last 2 years, if you go back over that manual, everything's there to help you win. Everything. I've used that with some of the top level, most elite people, and they still get great results. And we get some people who have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development, and it blows their mind when I go through those tools because it works. I know that it works. I use them all the time. It works. So just go back and use those tools. You can use other tools and supplement things like meditation and, I don't know, fucking burning incense and shit. You can do whatever you want, right? They're all supplemental tools. The stuff that I teach at Thrive Time is the foundation of other stuff. If you don't get that right, the rest of your life will probably be pretty chaotic and you'll always be looking for something. All right, let's get into the 8 tools because this is really important. These are the tools that are going to help you. So the first thing is tool number 1. Okay, you might want to write these down somewhere. Tool number 1 is you want to establish why the goal is important for you. So if you want to create a change and you want to be more disciplined and you want to be more self-empowered, then my recommendation is after you've got clear with the values, the purpose, and the mission and the visions, and you've collected your visions, you've turned them into a mission, you've got your values right, your purpose will come off of your values, and you go through what I teach at the updated Thrive Time. Then what you want to do is you want to grab a pen and paper and write down 100 to 2 reasons why the goal is important. What you're doing is you're creating neurological linking. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you to fast track the benefits of wanting to change. If you don't do that, your brain is going to consistently clash with itself because you've got an old habit that's been established. Those circuits in your brain have been fired and wired probably 10, 20, 50, 100, 100,000 times. This is a process called Hebb's law or Hebbian theory. And what that states is that circuits in the brain that fire together, wire together. And every time it fires and wires, it creates something called a neuroassociation. So let's say you drink alcohol when you're a kid or when you're a teenager, you're with friends, your brain then links friendship with alcohol. You then go to a nightclub and you enjoy yourself and the music's cranking and you feel great and you're elated. Your brain links alcohol to that elation, to that excitement. Then you're sitting down with a bunch of friends and you're sitting around a campfire, you have another drink of alcohol. Your brain links being calm and friendship and connectedness to alcohol. Then 30 years down the track, you're driving home from work, you've had a stressful day and your brain goes, man, I could just have a beer. I'd love a beer right now, or I'd love a drink of alcohol. You don't actually want the alcohol. What you want is all the associations that your brain has associated with the alcohol. Because you can have alcohol and your brain goes, elation from the nightclub when I was 18 years of age. the friendships, the connection, the sitting around the campfire, the chilling out. And so your brain's firing off all these circuits. Then one day you come along and you go, you know what, I'm just going to stop drinking. Your brain goes, do you reckon, motherfucker? I don't think that's going to be the case. Today that you're feeling good, let's not drink, okay? Because we're feeling good. 2 weeks later, you're on your no alcohol or your dry July or whatever bloody thing that people need these days to try and not drink or to change their habits. And you're stressed out. You're driving home from work and your brain goes, you know what I need? I need some friendship. I need some connection. I need to feel calm. I need to feel relaxed, but I also want to feel excited. I want to feel young. I want to feel youthful. And the easiest way to do that is to have some alcohol. So that's the reason why we get those cravings and those feelings. It's not the fact that we want the thing, because that's easy to change. It's all the associations that we've created with that thing that makes it so hard to change. But by writing 100 to 200 reasons why the new goal is important, every time you write a reason, you fire off a circuit in your brain. What you're doing now is you're creating a tug of war between the old habit and the new habit. And the more you fire and wire those circuits in your brain in the new habit by writing down reasons, the more your brain goes, if I don't drink, I actually get better connection. If I don't drink, I'm more confident. If I don't drink, I can think more clearly. If I don't drink and I can think more clearly, now I can make more money. When I make more money, then I can have better holidays and so on and so forth. And so you just don't want to drink anymore. And so now you don't have this internal battle where your brain goes, you know what, I really want to drink. No, I shouldn't have a drink. No, I want to drink, but I don't really want to drink. You know what, I've committed to this goal. When you do that, you'll head fuck yourself out of, you stress yourself out. It just creates this massive chaos inside your own mind. When that happens, I'll talk more about that in some of these other steps, but you essentially wear yourself down. Has anyone gone through that before where you try to change a habit and you just wear yourself down and it's just easy to just have the thing? So studies show that those who have clear and beneficial reasons for having a goal use different parts of their brain. MRI images show that the prefrontal or executive center activity is involved in clear reasoning. So when you're inspired and you have a fulfilled goal, your prefrontal cortex and executive center comes online, which is the most evolved part of the brain, and it governs your emotions. So when you have clear reasoning and you're doing something that serves a purpose, you're using the most evolved part of the brain. You get more glucose, more oxygen, more blood flow into that part of the brain, and you can control your emotional states. Versus when you have an external goal or a goal based on external factors, like you're wanting to prove something to somebody else, you want to prove something wrong, or you want to prove somebody else wrong, you're trying to avoid judgment or criticism from someone outside of yourself. Maybe you've got some implanted values. When you're like that and you're trying to change because of these external factors, or you just think it's a good idea, you use a part of the brain called the ventral striatum. And this is associated with rewards and desire. So when we're using the ventral striatum, what we do is we set a goal so that we can have a reward. Versus in the prefrontal cortex, we're working towards something meaningful. So tonight, I'm doing this thing, this talk. To me, this isn't something that I feel like I have to do. It's something that I love to do. So I would assume that I'm getting more blood into my prefrontal cortex. I feel like I'm just inspired. This is something that I want to do. It's not something that I have to do, and there's an external factor that's driving me. So it uses a different part of the brain. Where there are other things that I do during the week, like let's say it might be managing the finances, and I've got to go back and do spreadsheets and put data in. That's something that I have to force myself to do. I could probably, if I linked it, it would probably make it a bit easier. But if I've got to do data entry or something like that, then my brain goes, I don't really want to do this, and I can force myself to do it. But the problem with that is that it puts you into that reward center. When you're in the reward center, it also fires off impulses and desires. So normally what will happen is when I'm doing something like that, I'll start feeling more tired and more fatigued. When I'm more fatigued and tired, I will start craving things like chocolate, or I start thinking about doing other stuff. And that's because my brain hasn't linked it enough to want to do it where I'm inspired. So please remember that the more you live your purpose, your values, your mission, and the more you set your life up to win where you're fulfilled, the more you're using the most evolved part of the brain, which governs and controls the rest of the brain structure. And what it will do is your energy will increase, you'll feel better about life, you won't burn out as much, you won't feel as tired, and you don't have these internal dialogue fights where you go, I really should be doing this, but I don't want to, and so on. Tool number 2 is change your language. Language plays a massive factor in your self-discipline and your strategy for change, and also staying empowered. And here's a little tip. This is something that I use that has made a massive difference. So there are two language patterns that I use that really help me a lot. The first one is, and that's okay. So for instance, I ate some chocolate and that's okay. Versus I ate some chocolate, now I feel like shit. Why did I eat chocolate? I shouldn't have eaten chocolate. Why did I fuck up again? Why did that happen? If you do that, you're going to throw yourself into a downhill spiral and it's going to reinforce the pattern. So, and that's okay, just reminds you it's okay. It's not that big a deal. It's fine. Let's move on. When you do that, you'll be able to get back into your habit creation or your change really, really quickly and you'll be more disciplined. So, what normally happens, for instance, like if you go out and you order let's say you order a hamburger, but you're on a diet, you eat that hamburger and afterwards you feel like shit and you sit there and you think, oh, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. Why do I always do this stuff? Why do I always fuck up my goals? It shouldn't be like that. And now you're in this downhill spiral. Your language is poor, your communication to yourself is poor, and you're about to crash and burn. Then what most people do, and I know this pattern very intimately because this is one of the patterns that I've had to deal with for almost my whole entire life, is that when you're in that downhill spiral, you go, oh, you know what? Well, I've had the burger. I might as well have the chocolate now. And then when I go home, I might as well eat more. And now you're just binge eating. Okay. Whereas now you can eat the burger and you go, you know what? I stuffed up my diet and that's okay. Okay. Let's get on with it. So you want to use that, and that's okay. It's a really good language pattern to just stay or to get back on track really, really quickly. The next thing that you want to do, another good language pattern, is that you want to feel like the challenge is something that you're going to enjoy. So you want to set yourself up to enjoy the challenge versus feeling like it shouldn't happen. When you say, you know what, I want to lose weight and I'm really looking forward to the challenge of losing weight, or I'm really looking forward to the challenge of going to the gym, or I'm looking forward to the challenge of growing staff, what will happen now is that you see it as beneficial versus, you know what, I've just got to grow my business and now I've got staff that I've got to deal with and they're stuffing things up and they're making mistakes. That will throw you into a downhill spiral. So you can use staff made a mistake and that's okay. Okay, you can use that language pattern, or you can go, you know what, I love this challenge. This is just another challenge that I get to face, that I get to fix. When you see things as a challenge and you talk to yourself as it's a challenge and it's challenging you, you'll be fine. When you think that it shouldn't happen or it shouldn't feel hard or it shouldn't feel tough, well, you're trying to change some behavioral patterns. So of course it's going to be tough. Of course it's going to be hard. So tool number 2 is to change your language. Number 3 is something called implementation intention. So this is what if you read psychology books, they'll call it implementation intention. And this is the if-then statements. So what happens, let's say you're going out to a party and you're wanting to give up alcohol and you're wanting to create this as a new habit and you're wanting to create the self-discipline. What you want to think about is, what's your if-then statement? So if I have alcohol at the party, then what? Then so if I drink alcohol, then I will have water. Or if I have 1 vodka, lime, and soda, then I will have 2 glasses of water. Or if someone at the party offers me alcohol, then I will ask for sparkling water. If I feel like eating chocolate, then I will eat some grapes and do 10 push-ups and see in 60 minutes if I still feel like eating chocolate. So what it does is it helps you to set yourself up, because you know that there are going to be times where these certain things are presented in front of you when you're trying to change and when you're trying to be self-disciplined. Like it might be that I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night or 9:30 every night. Well, what happens when I can't? So what's my if then? Then I'll. So if I am out late and I can't get to bed by 9 o'clock, then I will wake up at 6 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. Or then I'll wake up at 7 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. So what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to make sure that you have a strategy to deal with whatever's going to come up and that it's not that big a deal. If not, you might get blindsided by it and you're not expecting it. Whereas you want to expect that if you're going to give up alcohol and you're going to go to a party, someone's going to offer you alcohol. Or if you want to give up drugs, that when you're going out to a nightclub, someone's going to offer you drugs. So what happens? If someone offers me drugs, then I will, what is it? So then you set up your then I'll, and that will help you to give up these patterns or to change these patterns. So research amongst adolescents found that with implementation intentions, it improved their self-control, and even amongst those who said that their willpower has been depleted. But essentially what we're talking about is decision fatigue. So when you have your implementation intention, which is your if-then statement, if you're already thinking about this, it will actually help you to stay on track than if you're burnt out and your willpower is just not there. So you've had a big day at work, you're stressed out, you're frustrated. If you already know this is going to happen, you've set up your implementation intention or your if then statement. If you've already set that up, you know then how you're going to navigate through it. Versus saying, well, you know what, I'm just tired and I'm burnt out and I'm run down. That's the reason why I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do and stuff everything up. Next, we have tool number 4, which is will depletion. Science calls it will depletion, but essentially we're talking about decision fatigue. So, what studies have shown is that humans get fatigued from making decisions. And so, studies suggest that the more decisions that you have to make within a day, or even before making a vital decision, your decision making ability becomes compromised. So, I'll tell you some of the different studies that they've done. They've done the marshmallow studies with children where they've shown that if you let kids know that they can have one marshmallow now, or you're going to go outside of the room for a couple of minutes, when you come back in after a couple of minutes, if the marshmallows are still there and they haven't eaten one, they get 2. What they found was that kids that were able to hold out for the second marshmallow had greater willpower, even as adults. So as they grew up, and they did this study over an extended period, I think it was like a 20-year period. I'll have to go back and have a look, but it was over an extended year period. They found that the kids who were able to hold themselves back and had more willpower when they were young had greater willpower as an adult. But it also showed that even those who didn't have willpower as a child could develop willpower by managing their decision fatigue. And I think we all know this because on days where we have to make a lot of decisions and you get home and your partner says to you, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I don't fucking know. I just want to eat. And then they go, well, I don't know. I don't know what to have either. And then you're both sitting there with decision fatigue trying to make a decision. If you were smart, you would have planned that earlier. And I'll talk about that in the next tool is planning, because planning reduces decision fatigue. Understand that you will wear out your decision-making ability. They also showed that people who had to make decisions before buying something would spend more when they did buy because they were already fatigued with their decisions. Please understand that however many decisions you've got to make through the day, the more that you can cut them down, the better your decision-making strategy overall. The more willpower you're going to have and the greater self-discipline. So if you're someone who has to make a shitload of decisions through the day, and now you're trying to diet and you get home at nighttime and your brain starts going, you know what, I really want some chocolate, you're going to struggle to not have that chocolate unless you're using some of those other things like the if-then statements or the and that's okay statement, or you just don't have chocolate in the house and you don't have Uber Eats and you're not going to get in the car. You've got to have some other pretty good strategies to deal with the decision fatigue. If you don't make a lot of decisions throughout the day and you're pretty calm, like let's say you're on holidays and you don't have to make a lot of decisions and you don't have to decide where you want to go and you're just relaxing by the pool and the chocolate comes out, you'll probably say no. Okay, unless you convince yourself that you're on holiday and it's okay, that's a different story. But your decision-making strategy will be massively compromised by the amount of decisions you've got to make throughout the day. Now, there are some things that I want to make clear here. Decision-making is a muscle. There are a couple of ways to fatigue a muscle. You fatigue a muscle when you're not used to training it. So if you want to get a stronger decision-making muscle, you have to train it consistently. The more you can make good decisions, the more you're training yourself to make better decisions over time. And so you can create an endurance muscle of decision fatigue. So the more decisions you keep making that are beneficial to you, the better you become at making beneficial decisions. The other thing is you just don't put yourself in those situations where you've got to make decisions when you're compromised. So if you get home from work and you know that you're absolutely cooked every night after work, it's a really, really, really bad idea to do that if you're on a diet, because your chances of making a poor food decision is going to be heightened, or going to the gym or something like that, because you're already fatigued. If you know you're already booked in with a personal trainer after work and your food's already cooked and it's sitting in the fridge, bingo. Now you've got a great result because you don't have to fight against that decision fatigue. Tool number 4 is manage your decision fatigue or your will depletion. You can do this by automating things. You can do this by prioritizing decision making and then try to put things in flow. Something that's helped me massively over the last 6 months to a year is if I book it in my calendar, it's in there. So almost every day I train, and I normally train in between around 12:30 and about 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30. I train twice a week with a personal trainer, but the other days I train. And the reason why I train is because it's booked in every day at the same time. I just fucking do it. I don't even think about it. I just do it. Because if I've got to think about it, it creates more decision fatigue. And if I've got to sit here and go, should I get this work done or should I train? Should I get this work done or should I train? I really need to get this work done or should I train? At a certain time, I just stop and I leave and I walk outside. The same thing happens with my sleep these days. Normally, I would work to try to get as much shit done throughout the day. And some days I would wake up and I would feel on fire. So I would work from 5 a.m. until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But what would happen is the next day I'd be absolutely cooked. And by the third day, I was knackered. And so my energy levels would be pretty shitty. My sleeping patterns were pretty shitty. What I noticed is that I just set a set time every night. So normally at around 8:30, I'm in bed. And by 9 o'clock, I'm asleep. And then I wake up at 5. That's just how I do it every day. So I don't have to think about it. So you want to try and automate your life as much as possible where you can get into a set routine so that you don't have to make as many decisions. You just do shit at that time. The more you can train yourself to do that, the less decision fatigue you're going to have. You'll see me do that at events where I say, Jess, you pick what I'm eating for lunch and just let me know what I'm having and go tell me where it is and let me go. You would have seen me at old events where I would get really frustrated with the team because I'm standing there teaching all day, making a lot of decisions about what's going on in the room, who's doing what, and I'm watching everything. And so I would get really decision fatigued. And then at lunchtime, I would go to the back of the room and I'd say, Jess, what am I eating for lunch? And she'd go, I don't know. Well, what do you feel like? And I'm like, fuck, I don't even know. Just tell me what I'm having. And then she'd spend like 10 minutes where you can have this or that or this and that. And then I'm starting to get frustrated. And by the end of the day, I'm so cooked and burnt out, I would be fucked. And so I had to put a rule in place for our events. Jess, you pick what I'm having for lunch. Just tell me what it is. Tell me what I'm having for dinner. And I'm good with that. Like she knows what I eat. That's done. Because it reduces that level of fatigue. So you need to manage. Tool number 4 is manage your decision fatigue or your will depletion. Tool number 5 is planning, reduces decision fatigue. So you want to plan your week in advance. Go to your calendar on a Sunday night or go to your calendar the night before and plan tomorrow so that you can just stick to a routine and you can stick to timeframes and just get shit done. The more you've got to think about stuff throughout the day, the more you're going to fatigue. Okay, and that's going to massively impact your self-discipline. So planning equals reduction in decision fatigue. That's tool number 5. Tool number 6, this was really interesting. When I was going through a heap of the research, there was a lot of talk about nutrition. And evidence suggests that when blood sugar levels are low, your brain function is reduced and your ability to self-manage or to be self-disciplined is reduced along with your willpower. So when you're hungry, your willpower is going to drop. When you've got peaking and troughing blood glucose levels because of your food and the food type that you're eating, then decision fatigue is going to be higher. And it's going to be harder to be disciplined and have that willpower. So make sure that you're eating good quality food. I tend to eat more of a high fat, high protein diet because I find if I eat too many carbohydrates, my blood sugar level drops more frequently than if I just eat more balanced throughout the day and more high fat foods. So what they found, so studies show that dieters who ate more frequently while reducing their calories seem to stick to their calorie controlled diet versus those who eat all their calories in 1 to 2 meals. So if you want to become more disciplined and you want to have greater willpower, but you find that throughout the day you're sort of feeling tired or you're feeling flat or you're finding it hard to make decisions, then try and eat more often throughout the day. Take your however many calories and divide it by however many meals you want. There's a great app that I use, so I track all my calories these days because I got in the habit of just eating a lot of shit. You probably noticed I've gotten quite big over the last year or so, both muscular because I'm still training quite a lot, but also a bit through my midsection. So these days I just track my calories, I make sure that I'm eating enough. But let's just say you're on 2,500 calories. What you can do is just divide that up over how many meals you want. So if it's 3, you just divide 2,500 by 3 meals, or you might want to have 5 meals. And so just divide those calories up and eat more balanced. One of the apps that I use is MyFitnessPal. I think that it's probably one of the best calorie tracking apps because it's so simple. You can use your camera and it takes shots of the barcodes. So you just hold up a tin of whatever you're going to eat. Like if it's a tin of tuna, you just hold it up and it will automatically scan it and tell you how many calories are in there. Jess and myself eat pretty simple these days. Like I'll just eat meat and veg or, meat and salad. Or tonight I had burritos. So it was just essentially mincemeat, a whole bunch of salad, which is stuff full calories, and then the wrap. And by doing that and tracking your calories, you can maintain more of a steady blood glucose level throughout the day. You can make sure that you're not overeating or eating too much or not eating enough. And then you're just staying on track. That way you don't have to think about it versus having one big meal and then feeling like shit and going 6 or 7 hours without eating and then eating late. That'll create crazy blood glucose levels. So tool number 6 is get your nutrition right. Like I said, I highly recommend that if you haven't ever tracked your calories, I would highly recommend that you do it. I hated doing it. It took me about 6 months to get in the habit of doing it. But now I just do it every meal. It's easy. It automatically logs the meals that you consistently have. So, like, I know every morning for breakfast, I pretty much eat the same breakfast, or maybe 2 to 3 different versions of that. And so it's already in my app. Once I start writing it, it comes up and I just click it and it's already in there. So I use my Fitness Pal. There are some other good ones out there, but that will definitely help with you staying more balanced or having more balanced blood glucose levels, better willpower, and controlling your blood glucose levels. Also, planning means that will help in the reduction of decision fatigue. So if you're planning your meals the night before, if you're planning what you're going to eat tomorrow, it's going to make it a lot easier than if you just wake up in the morning, you feel hungry, then you eat whatever you want, then you just go through 3 quarters of the day, haven't eaten, haven't thought about food, and then you get to the mid afternoon, you're thinking, shit, I need to eat. I'm going to hold off for dinner. Then you go out for dinner and have a massive dinner, then chocolate and all that sort of stuff. Probably not the best way to create self discipline and willpower. And by the way, this doesn't just affect your physical body, this affects your ability to make other decisions too. So that's why getting your nutrition right is essential if you want to have willpower and better self discipline in all areas. So, tool number 7 is that mood plays an important role in self discipline and willpower. Something that Jess and I have really been focused on a lot, which has made a massive difference, is we've just made a rule that the way we think is empowering and the way we talk is empowering. We will pick each other up on disempowering self talk or disempowering talk about anything that's going on. So, there's no complaining, no blaming, no justifying. Just fucking pull your head in. That's part of what we've been going through for the last 6 to 12 months is picking each other up on this shit. Because I noticed that it's quite easy when things aren't going well to start talking negatively. I was brought up in a household where, my mum would fly off the handle at pretty much anything. And it was just a habit that I had where I'd be frustrated a lot. I'd get pissed off at things quite easy. I'd be highly critical and judgmental. And so I've had to work really, really hard over the years to try to break away some of those patterns. Jess is the opposite. She just sort of shuts down and just goes quiet, but she can be quite negative as well. And so what we noticed is that we would find problems and then talk about them and connect over them. These days, we don't do that, okay? Because it does impact your ability to be more self-disciplined and have greater willpower. And so we both know that we've got big goals, big dreams, and we know what we want to do and we know why it's important. And for me, she knows how important this community is. She knows how important my mission is. And sitting around complaining about things, thinking about negative shit, watching the news, getting caught up in any drama on social media, any of that crap will not help us. So please remember that mood plays an important role in self-discipline. That if you're talking negatively, you feel like shit, you're beating yourself up, you're negatively self-talking, you're talking bad about other people, you're judging, you're criticizing other people, you're thinking about worst case scenarios, you're more fear-driven, you're worry-orientated, then don't be surprised if your willpower and self-discipline is dog shit. Make sure you change the way that you use your emotions. Okay, they're there as feedback. It doesn't mean you can't feel bad. It just means that when you feel bad, look at the empowering reasons as to what it's trying to teach you and how you can learn from it and how you can move on so that you don't hold on to it. Go and grab a process of potential and balance that shit out. Go and write down 50 benefits or 100 benefits of having that fear. So anytime we have fear, worry, concern, stress, you're essentially putting yourself into a flight, fight, or freeze response. It's a survival response. Here's something that you might want to write down that's really important. When you have a fear response, and a fear response, we're talking about stress, worry, anxiety, being afraid, worrying about things, any of those type of scenarios, mentally or emotionally, you're putting your body into a survival response. Survival equals life threatening. So when you're worried about money in your bank account, that's a life-threatening response. Your whole body has to change the way that it operates. Now, when you say to someone in Australia, is worrying about your phone bill or worrying about something that's going on at work. So let's say you've got a work colleague's a bit of a dick. You get stressed out, you start worrying about it. Your fear response comes up. Okay, you might have a bit of anxiety, you might be sweating a little bit more, you might be a bit more frustrated. You're changing your digestive responses. So now you might start having some gut problems. Okay, you might be more constipated, you might have more diarrhea, so your bowel patterns might change. You might notice that you start getting bloating more. Okay, you're changing the blood flow to your brain. You're going from the prefrontal cortex, which is the most evolved part of the brain, and now you're dropping down into the amygdala. The amygdala is more of the survival response area. It's where the fear response lives. And so now you're becoming more afraid. That changes your decision-making ability. You are definitely going to screw your life up by being more fear-driven. There are times for fear. Fear is there as an important factor in life. Like, I hate when personal development speakers say get rid of fear. You never get rid of fear. It's there, but it's there as a warning sign. It's like saying I hate the red light that comes on my dash to tell me that I'm running out of fuel. Okay, you don't hate that fucking light. Go fill up the car, right? That's why it's there. It's telling you it's running out of fuel. Okay, it's not a bad thing. The fear isn't a bad thing. It's just a warning light. It's saying there's something going on here that needs to be dealt with. When you don't deal with it and you don't have a strategy to deal with it, then over time, it will change the way you operate as a person. It'll change your decision-making strategies. It'll change your willpower. It'll change your self-discipline. It'll change your habits. It'll change the way you interact. It'll change the way you self-talk. It changes your digestion. It changes the psychosomatic responses in your body, so you might start getting pain. There is so much data and research out there that shows that pain is heightened under stress and under fear and under worry. So it's not the best. Also, there is a correlation between high stress levels and disease profiles. So you're essentially fucking yourself up. You're setting your life up to have a massive problem. Now, if the fear is warranted, fair enough. But if you're driving home from work, car cuts you off, you've been watching the news all week, you're all stressed out, you're all frustrated, you're all caught up in conspiracy theories. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that because, there are a fair few conspiracies that are probably fucking true and have logic behind it. But my point is, if you're putting yourself in a scenario where you're watching all this stuff, you think that the government's controlling you, you're all stressed out, you watch the news, you drive home from work, someone cuts you off, now you're all pissed off and frustrated and you're angry, you're setting yourself up to have a shit life. Here's the thing, turn off the news. Don't get stressed out when someone cuts you off. Who knows? They're not thinking. They're probably a shit driver. Most people on the road who drive probably aren't the best drivers. We're not taught how to be a fucking race car driver. We're taught how to drive just safely enough to get us to work and get us home. These are the things that happen. When you think like that and you talk yourself through it, you realize that it's not worth worrying about. Because if not, what you're doing is you're dropping yourself into a mood that is lowering your self-discipline, lowering your willpower, putting you into a flight, fight, and freeze response, which essentially is a survival response. Okay, you're trying to survive, which then really means that your life is threatened. You're in a life-threatening situation that's not that big a fucking deal. But you're doing this to yourself by putting yourself in consistent environments of fear, worry, concern, all of that sort of shit. So don't do it, because tool number 7 is that mood plays an important role in your self-discipline and willpower. If you want to have a great life, just try and figure out the things that trigger you and piss you off and upset you, and don't put yourself in those environments. I notice if I'm on social media for too long, like TikTok, I start getting pissed off at things and I start getting frustrated. So I limit my time. There is an app that I use that I notice if I start using social media too much. One of the guys that I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with, he's a software engineer who studied quantum physics, psychology, all that sort of stuff. So he builds AI technologies. So he works with artificial intelligence. Now, he is finishing his PhD and he works for the Defense Department. When I talk to him, he's really interesting because even one of the things that he won't do is he doesn't use social media. He had Instagram and he comes on and off of it. He might use it for a couple of weeks and then he's off. He just deletes it and then you don't see him again for a couple of months. The reason why, he said that they know how to control your brain so well that it is almost impossible to fight against what happens in your brain when you're using social media, especially for extended periods of time. They know how to control your brain, okay? Because humans are pretty fucking predictable. What he was saying was like, if you get caught and you see drama enough, or you see things that worry you enough, or you see things that are fear-driven enough, then you're not going to think properly. Now, he didn't say this from a military point of view, so I'm not saying that the military are using this stuff against you. What I'm saying is that as someone who develops artificial intelligence for the military, he doesn't even like to use that stuff because he knows how easy it is for your brain to be controlled and consumed by it where you need to have it. Okay, as though it becomes an addiction. It's like crack for your brain, right? And that's why he chooses not to use it, because it's so easy for it to consume your brain. He's like, there's nothing you can fucking do about it. Because once it has you, you're now fighting a drug. But anyway, this one here is called App Block. It's a great little app. You can just set it to your phone, and anytime that you can set the times that it just locks your apps. You can get in there and you can turn it off, but it's a bit of a dick around. It makes it a bit harder to use those apps. You can use that, or there's a timer on there, so you can just set it for 2 hours, and you know that if you're starting to waste time, you just hit the 2-hour button or whatever you set it to, and it will automatically block those apps. Give that a shot. Tool number 8 is train your brain to become more self-disciplined. So each time you catch yourself being disciplined, add it to a list or use the fishbowl method. So the fishbowl method is you buy a glass bowl and you put it somewhere in your house. Every time you catch yourself being more disciplined, like let's say you go to eat the chocolate or you're going to miss a gym session, and you say, you know what, I'm getting in the car and I'm driving to gym. When you get home from your gym session, write on a little piece of paper next to the fishbowl, went to the gym even though I didn't want to. Screw it up and then throw it in the fishbowl. After a week, grab all those bits of paper out and write them down in your journal. Because what you're reminding yourself of is how disciplined you are. Versus the other way around of training yourself to think about how undisciplined you are by reminding yourself what a piece of shit loser you are. Because when you're undisciplined, you've eaten that chocolate bar and you sit there and you go, oh, I always do this, I always fuck up, this is, I always do this. And you get caught in your head, you're reminding yourself what a loser you are and how undisciplined you are and all that sort of negative self-talk shit. Don't do that. Bad strategy. If you talk to yourself like that for long enough, that will become your life. Okay, the energy you put out is the energy you get back. You do not want to be putting out that shitty fucking energy of disempowering negative self-talk that makes you feel like shit. Do not do that. It will not help you win in life. So I like using the fishbowl method, or I do it in my journal. So every night before I go to bed, I write down my wins for the day and I write down anything that I picked up where I was disciplined, because I want to remind myself that I'm a winner, because winners keep winning and losers always lose. So if you've got a losing mindset, you'll lose. If you've got a winner's mindset, you have a high chance of winning. So you want to keep on that winner's mindset. So I write down my wins every day. And then I also write down any times where I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do that, and I did it anyway. That means that I'm disciplined. I'm reminding myself that I'm very disciplined and also that I keep winning. Okay? It just helps me to set my day up to win. Now, do I always win? No. Am I undisciplined? Yes. I have some times where I'm undisciplined. I have some times where, my alarm went off this morning at 5 o'clock. Jess and I worked too late last night, and so I just hit the alarm and I went back to sleep until 7 o'clock this morning. Probably a little bit undisciplined, but not that big a deal. Okay, I just get on with it. But there are other things that I do throughout the day that make me know that I'm very disciplined. Today I'm 100% in my calories. I'm on track. So I'll write that down as an area where I'm disciplined. So you want to remind yourself of this, because winners keep winning and losers always lose. Set yourself up to be a winner. Just like if you want to be disciplined, remind yourself of how disciplined you are versus reminding yourself of how undisciplined you are. Okay, bad strategy. Let me know if that one helps. That's one that most people, I think, get stuck with. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.